Hello, welcome to Priory Paddock. We're still in the depths of winter now, but at least we've reached Candlemas, the early beginning of February, and although the days are still grey and gloomy, the gorse at the wall at the front of the paddock is flowering as ever, and that brightens up the day a little bit. We are definitely still in the full grip of winter, although it's been fairly mild this year. We've had 1 week of frost with ice across most of the pond, but other than that it's been pretty dismal, damp, windy, but very mild really. Now, as I say, we've reached Candlemas, we're into February. The day length is increasing gradually, but visibly, I think, now. And this time of the year, February and March, is the time when the life cycle in the paddock has got pretty much to its lowest point. And so we can use this relatively fallow period to get the routine maintenance done with the least negative effect on the animals, birds, creatures that live here in the paddock. One of the jobs we have to do is to keep the pond clear. The plants in the pond, the flag irises and the marsh marigolds are in beds or around the edge, and they need to be kept from spreading too far into the pond. And there's a lot of intrusive alien weed that we don't want, which will very easily cover the pond if we don't keep it under control. So this time of the year, while the invertebrates and the amphibians in the pond are nicely hibernating, we can rake out as much of the weed, the intrusive weed, as we can, and reduce the spread of the natural spread of the iris beds and the marsh marigolds as well. And that's one of the jobs that we're doing at the present time. One of the biggest problems in the pond is a thing called fool's watercress. It looks very much like ordinary watercress, except that if you actually get some ordinary watercress and hold it next to the fool stuff, the leaf shape is slightly different. But I believe that unscrupulous young ladies used to flog it round the streets of London in bunches with a bit of the real stuff on the outside. But this, of course, is all allegation. I have no evidence of that. One of the major tasks to take place at this time of year in the paddock, while the sap is down in the trees, is maintenance of the trees. The woodland here is managed woodland. Its function is to provide a shelter belt for the rest of the paddock. This isn't an exercise in rewilding, so we actually have to keep the woodland controlled. The most obvious way in which this happens is through the pollarding of the willow trees. In the upper part of the shelter belt, there are a good number of willows which were allowed to grow to a reasonable maturity, and then they were cut off. The trunks have been cut off 3 or 4 feet in some cases less, above the ground, and then the shoots, the fresh shoots that come out from the cut stumps are cut back themselves every 3 or 4 years, and this maintains a nice thick shelter belt, and it prevents the willows from overshadowing the main part of the garden. In the central area of the paddock there is the great stand of codlings and cream flowers, although at least they were flowers last summer. Now they are bare brown stalks, anything from 6 to 8 feet tall, with the remains of feathery tassels at the top, which were the seed heads. Now these seed heads have been very, very effectively combed through the winter by flocks of birds, particularly goldfinches. The goldfinches have been very keen on the codlings and cream, and they've cleaned out the stand pretty much effectively. We've also had, during the winter, visits from mixed flocks of other finches, particularly in the alder trees. In the tops of the alder trees there are tiny cones, and those have the seeds of the alders in them. And during the earlier part of the winter, while there was still seed available, there were flocks of finches with chaffinches, greenfinches, and goldfinches as well. And I even saw a bullfinch at one point, a nice bright pink bullfinch, and they were feeding on the seeds in the cones in the alder trees. The year is moving on though, even though it's still very cold and winter might have a trick or two up its sleeve yet. And although the last year's seeds and growth are pretty much gone now, and as I say, the central area will be cleared completely shortly to allow the fresh growth to come up from underneath. Under the trees, the growth is quite obvious already. The snowdrops are in flower, the wild daffodils are in bud, and in some cases flowering already, and under the area where the trees are, there's a carpet of heart-shaped green leaves, which are the leaves of the celandine, and there are lots of buds and even a few flowers visible there under the celandines, in the celandines. And if the sun was out, we would be able to see lots of bright yellow flowers there as well. The sword-shaped leaves, there are clumps of sword-shaped green leaves, which will be bluebell plants, and next to them, scattered in amongst those, there are some very dramatic looking leaves. They're shield shape, I suppose, but they're pointed shield shape. Often they have black speckles on them, and this is the leaves of the wild arum lily, Arum maculatum, and those will have beautiful white spathes on them in a couple of months' time. The hazels, there are a few lamb's tails dangling from the hazels, but I'm afraid those have opened a bit too early. I don't think the hazels are going to set many nuts at this time of the year. Well, that's what can be seen in the paddock at the moment. It's moving on, shall we say, and in the next few weeks the appearance will change quite dramatically. Cheerio.